Welcome to Plead the Cause, brought to you by Heart of the Bride Ministries, where we plead the cause for the orphaned and vulnerable children around the world. I'm Tommy Morris, the Director of Community Engagement for Heart of the Bride Ministries, and I'm joined once again by Brian Chrisman, our Executive Director. What's up, Brian? How's it going?
It's going good, man. How about you, Tommy?
Doing very well today. Thank you. Thank you. So
Good
we're
to be
going to
back
kind of
with you, man.
continue. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to continue this conversation of kind of how we do ministry. It's one thing to talk about the needs and understand all that, but at some point we got to get to how we tackle this. I mean, it is
Yeah,
kind of a big thing. We talked about the numbers before, but one of the things that's beautiful is even though we know that there are millions, literally millions of kids out there, and we can't save millions, but we can help one, right? We can
absolutely.
we can help the next
Absolutely.
one, and that's a beautiful thing. So we're going to talk about how we do that. So in our last episode, you talked about Heart of the Bride bringing together the body of Christ around the world and how we kind of network and and work together to do this. So how?
Yeah, good question, man. Well, we work with believers around the world, right? When God leads us to someone, we find already doing this work. Okay, we usually find ourselves joining a work already in progress, if you will, right? I mean, maybe not a developed work, but we find people who you know are bringing kids into their homes. We find people who are already starting community ministries to children in need, or are starting a school, on their own, struggling to do this, but they're believers. Their faith is solid. They have skill. They definitely have the willingness, and they demonstrate a sacrificial lifestyle. I mean, so many of them in places where they don't have much are already sacrificing for others. So when we see that, then and God leads, and we partner with them in these ministries. And as we get more specific in episodes to come, you'll hear some of those specific stories. Today is still kind of general, but that's how God leads us to them. And so what we work to do, right, are the basic things. Send resources, obviously, to resource them in what they're doing. Whether it be money, specific resources, things that they need. We provide training. We do that a lot. We partner with a lot of other organizations to provide that training. We're not experts in everything, so it's already a communal effort working together to be able to do this. So we provide training. We send missionaries. Tommy, you're learning that now. It's been revealed in other areas. Everybody knows that you and your wife Helena are have already committed to be missionaries in Zambia, aiming to leave in the fall of 2024. So we send missionaries to walk with our partners around the world to help supply what they need, to be conduits of those resources, and to help the churches and believers on in other areas, to be able to communicate. Communication is a huge thing, and it's very helpful to have missionaries there. And we establish partnerships with believers in other areas of the world to share the burden. Or here in Northwest Florida, we are establishing partnerships between churches to help meet needs of families in crisis right here. So we really kind of see ourselves as our calling is to bring believers together so that we can do this work together. And so those are some of the practical ways that we do that.
Yeah, I love it. And it's just a reminder that there is this universal church, right? In the creeds you hear about the Holy Catholic Church, lowercase c, which really means the worldwide church. And that's what
Yeah.
this is. This is bringing the church together. It's not just the church here, it's multiple countries. One of the things we do is we have a group chat where missionaries from each of the countries are all able to talk with one another and encourage one another, and that's such a beautiful thing.
Well,
Heart of the
missionaries
Bride,
and
yeah.
partners, it's
Hmm.
it's it's multinational. This group chat that we have,
Yeah.
our partners from those countries are also sharing prayer requests and praises and celebrations, because it's the body of Christ all coming together. Already
Yeah.
a bunch of different languages. It's awesome.
It is. It is. And it's great. So Heart of the Bride, you've mentioned this in I think the last episode. We have ministries that we support and serve in Kenya, in Zambia, in India, Haiti, and then right here locally in Northwest Florida, working with local foster care systems. And the beauty of that, today we're going to talk about Kenya and Zambia, but the beauty of that is that it really is a mix. You know, you talked about having missionaries, like my wife and I are going to be going to Zambia next year and serving as missionaries. But the beauty is how the locals in each of the countries are also brought in and a major part, actually probably the predominant part of the ministries there
Yes.
locally.
Yes.
You know, and that's a great thing.
Yeah. Well, we're not there to do. We're there to help, to share the
Yeah.
burden, as we've said
Yeah.
previously. We're there to walk alongside and to walk with. And listen, and to be quite honest with you, I don't think we would thrive if we were trying to do it on our own, because, they are experts in their own cultures. And there's so many things we would think would work. I love it when I share an idea with a partner, and then I can see it in their eyes like, oh, this isn't going to work. And then I say, what's wrong? And then they tell me why it won't work in their culture. And it makes total sense. I just, and so we wouldn't be able to do this on our own. We shared that whole, the numbers before, hundreds of millions of orphans in this world. Well, we can't help all of them, but we can help the ones that God brings to us. But we couldn't even do that without the believers God has already called around the world. And so we're walking with and alongside, man. That's what we're called to do.
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's talk about a couple of these ministries just so we can, let our viewers know a little bit more about what Heart of the Bride does in these different areas. So, the first one is Kenya, where we have the Eagles Christian Academy. Share a little bit about kind of how everything got started in Kenya and what exactly we do over there.
Oh yeah, well, I won't talk in detail about how it got started, because that's a long story. We will share
All right.
eventually, but God led us to some missionaries. We had met some people in Kenya, and we're feeling like God was calling us to a work there. This was around 2007. So we got connected to some missionaries there, and then they introduced us to a gentleman who was working in the facilities, like grounds crew, at this Christian missionary school there. And so through him, we began to see, okay, his heart for orphans. He was already taking them into his house, and we knew that a work was developing there. At the same time, these missionaries at that time were house parents for Rift Valley Academy in Kenya, and a boy in their dorm, went home to his mother and said, "Mom, you're always wanting to help the kids. You're talking about that one to help the kids in our home village. I think you need to meet this guy that is here visiting with our missionaries." And this was our founder, Tony Gibson. And so, so sure enough, God arranged a meeting. I think it was just a ride to the airport at first, a couple hours in a car. But God began to forge a relationship there, two of them. And so at first we were partnered with an orphanage that was named House of Hope, and we partnered with that orphanage until 2018, when our missionaries transitioned to another ministry. They felt called to go minister to the Muslim world. So we were like, "Amen, we're with you, as follow God's calling." Then a partner ministry we knew of actually took over House of Hope, and so we still have a relationship with them, still see the kids, but we're not running that one directly now. But then but hours away, south of Nairobi, Monica Muoki was this person Tony had been connected to, and she was living she's from a small village called Kithianio. That's where their family home is. But she and her husband live in Nairobi. Both have run successful businesses, could live very comfortably in Nairobi and not think about the world, not worry about other people's needs. But that's not what God has for them. He's continued to place their home village of Kithianio on their hearts. So her husband Daniel continues to pastor a church there, and Monica's burden was for the kids. So she started a ministry in 2008 she called Heralds of His Coming. And that comes out of Second Timothy 2, somewhere in there. It says, I've been appointed a herald of Christ. And so, They love those kind of big names in Kenya. And so she started this ministry of just kind of an outreach. And after a short time, she had 250 like middle schoolers and high schoolers coming out of the Kenyan bush. And I mean, you can't see five houses or huts standing at the church. 250 kids were showing up. They would dance, and so she began to substitute the music for Christian music, so now they're dancing to Christian music. She was feeding them. She began to share the gospel, and not long after that, these kids began to be transformed, and so now they were singing and dancing to the Lord and for the Lord, sharing the gospel in the songs that they were leading. They began to lead worship at the church. And so we partnered with them for several years, but what we really began to see was this. And Monica said it so clearly one day. She said, I get these kids one day a week, but I see Satan working against them, working against this ministry, fighting in their lives. And the schools are horrible around here. And he's got a foothold in these schools. You know, the local school principal, elementary school principal, also owns a bar downtown and sells his homebrew to, some of the elementary school kids after school. Like, I've got to have these kids more. We've got to reach them, and we've got to provide good Christian education. So in 2016, she started the Eagles Christian Academy with 7 students. And God just blessed it and has continued to work in that. So we shifted our partnership to the Eagles Christian Academy. That is our primary partnership in Kenya. And so now it's got 140 students. They've got preschoolers through 7th grade. Each year we're adding a grade. We have seen kids come to the Lord. We've seen kids transformed, kids they come from horrible trauma, beginning to open up and experience healing through the gospel of Jesus Christ, through trauma-informed care. And of course, we still have relationship with some of the older kids. So we've got the Eagles Christian Academy, and God's working there. 140 students, like I said, 14 teachers, about 10 other staff. You know, because we cook and feed and provide for these kids in a lot of ways outside of just education. We've got a chaplain there, Pastor Simon and his wife Lucy, who share the gospel and disciple these kids. But we also have relationships with some of the older kids from the House of Hope formerly. And some of the kids that came through Monica's early ministry that are in college that we supply upward scholarships to. That's the Upward Fund is for transition, whether it's trade training or some other specific degree. And so we maintain relationships with them and disciple them and still work in that area of Kenya through another partner. Her name is Rose. And she works with them, helps us oversee our college students. So a lot going on in Kenya. We have followed the Lord's leading, and so it's changed throughout the years, but we definitely see his hand at work. And our vision now, and I will cast this in future episodes, though, is that if we're going to help these kids, the next step is to reach the village. It is to see these families transformed. A lot of them live with one parent or grandparents or aunts and uncles. They all have a place to live. But some of those homes are horrible. They go home to horrible situations at night. And we want to see them transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's our next step, is to really launch community ministry around there to see this place transformed.
Yeah, and we have a team going there this summer.
Yes.
Actually, what, in probably like 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, right at it. Yeah, June 22nd.
Yeah. So excited just for how God uses you guys over there, especially in continuing with this vision to reach out to the families. You know, it's always great to start to look at how we're going to expand the ministry and reach the whole family. I mean, that's definitely an important thing.
Well, I mean, we these kids keep coming to us with trauma and emotional scars, and that we're working through. And we discussed in the last episode to work through these things so that they can hear the gospel, so that they can be transformed, so that they can learn, right? Even just to learn in school, trauma prevents a lot of learning. Well, I mean, what if we could see their families transformed and they didn't come to us with these scars? So we want to see the village of Kithianio radically transformed by the gospel, so that what we're doing there is discipleship and education and trade training and equipping, to send these kids out into Kenya as missionaries of the gospel without having to go through all that other stuff at first. And so that's the vision, man.
Definitely. So look forward to hearing the testimony once y'all come back. We'll be able to do an episode and just talk about all that God did on that trip. So let's shift gears. We'll head to another part of Africa and talk about our ministry, Abba's Heart in Zambia, Kitwe, Zambia. So just share a little bit about that and what we do over there.
Yeah, Kitwe's up in the northern part of Zambia. Zambia kind of looks like a glove, so it's over west of where the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo dips down in there. Up in the copper belt, so a lot of mining up there. You drive past all these mounds of dirt to get to Kitwe. That's another interesting story that is long, how God led us to one partner and and then kind of separated that ministry. That partner still can former partner still continues to with an orphanage there and to reach kids. But what we find in Kitwe are a lot of street children. Kitwe is a large city. I believe it's the second largest in Zambia, especially with the copper mining so close by. So kids who leave home for a lot of different reasons, whether they've been kicked out, whether they've been abused and they're running away, or they're neglected, or some of them, as we've shared before, just are enticed by the world, thinking there's a better way. I can find more if I go out on my own into the street. End up in the streets. And so we've got hundreds of street kids in Kitwe, Zambia, and they're all ages. In fact, after the pandemic, we've seen kind of a stretch in the extremes, younger and older street kids. So it's really our most comprehensive ministry. Is in Zambia, and it's divided really into two parts: outreach and residence. We have a very large outreach ministry to these street kids, with a weekly outreach to the kids, where they meet them at a point in town and just kind of fellowship with them, love on them, develop relationship. There's really not a whole lot to it at that point. It's really just the entry point where kids get to know us. One night in a night is more focused on boys, and it's a larger number of boys on the street than there are girls. And then there's a separate event that the girls come to. And so the staff at that point is just developing relationship, trying to find out who's new. We do a lot of social work in Zambia. So when we find a new kid on the street, our staff is trying to get information, trying to track down their families, because if they have left a situation they can go back to, the sooner the better. The longer they're on the street, the less likely it is that they can go back home. There'll be more reprogramming involved at that point, and healing and all that kind of stuff. So they do a lot of social work. Then the next step is there's an event called My Papa, where they bring the kids off the street and out to the property that we have, to give them a day off of the street, where they can, first of all, wash their clothes, take a shower, bathe. They can actually just relax for a while. They play games, love to play soccer or football, and then of course they feed them a huge meal, and then share the gospel, or share some biblical story, some really simple form of discipleship, because these kids aren't ready for anything deep. But My Papa is a great ministry, and it lets them see over the fence a house where other boys and girls are living, and just gives them a glimpse that there's something after the streets, something off of the streets. The next level then is we have a learning center downtown, or a drop-in center as we call it. Kind of go back and forth between those two terms. But it is a place where kids can go. It's just off of the downtown area. God provided a house there, and we were able to redo it. Where kids can come find some refuge, but it is a learning center as well. There are regularly scheduled programs. The kids, even still living on the street, can come and get education. They can learn, not just book learning, but they also learn skills. I've got pictures of that trip you were on, Tommy, last year, where, they're teaching the older boys how to iron clothing, right? But just trying to help them develop some skill. And so the learning center is really the next step. And that's where we and our staff there find the kids who are ready for residence. When they identify kids who are regular to that program, who demonstrate the fact and the willingness that, hey, I want to leave the street. I want to leave this behind. I'm ready to give this up, put the drugs behind me. Our biggest problem there is drug wise is an inhalant called Sticka. It's like a byproduct of plastics manufacturing, I think, and it's just a little bit of chemical in the bottom of a plastic bottle they sniff. And and it provides practical escape from the effects of hunger, the feelings of cold, in the winters there. So they find refuge in this drug, and it just destroys brain cells. And so, we have kids with tremors from the physical effects. They lose hearing, they lose sight, and of course, they lose the ability to think, as it just kills brain cells. But if we can find a kid ready to get off the street through the learning center, then they can go to the second part of our program, which is residence. And in Zambia is the only place that Heart of the Bride still has a residence program that looks more like an orphanage style program. But it's because these are kids we now know either don't have families or don't have family situations they can go back to, or they're not ready to go back to. So our residence program is divided into a couple of things. We have the boys program called the Vineyard, and we do this in family style settings. So we have two sets of Zambian house parents who are both retired pastors. I love it, and have just shared their heart with me that they feel like this is their calling for the rest of their lives. One of them said, "Hey, I used to have a congregation once or twice a week, and now I feel like God's given me a congregation every day. He's given me people to disciple every day." And so, and they are called, and they're loving, and they're wise. So each Zambian house parents set will take up to 8 boys and work them through detox, discipleship, evangelism. Then they begin to, go to school, take them to school, or school them there on the property. They begin to learn trades, farming and all the things that you need to learn in Zambia to survive. And so that's our boys program. Then we in the last 4 years started a girls program called the Daughters of Destiny. It's probably the most raw program we have that you'd be a part of. It is the closest thing we have to actually dealing with human trafficking. I won't get too graphic, but these girls on the street are experiencing everything you'd expect a girl on the street to experience. Many of them are abused often. They're sold in the sex trade. Some of them are locked up at night in these metal containers. I mean, it's just horrible. So that we have far fewer in that program because the ratio of caregiver to resident has to be pretty low. And so right now we're taking 2 girls at a time, and it is a lot of healing, a lot of emotional scars. But our first 2 graduated at the end of 2021 and are doing well in the exiting program. In fact, they're coming back and helping teach some of the newer girls and helping with the outreach with girls on the street. So it's pretty amazing to see that transformation. And just in the last year, we started a third program called the Skills Training Center. One of the things that began to burden our missionaries have been there, our lead couple now 17 years, is that there are these older boys on the street that do not have the capability to come off the street, go to school, graduate, with like a high school degree, and then go to trade training. They don't have the time. A lot of them have sustained too much mental damage to do that. And so they needed a separate program for them. And, there are kids that have been a part of our program and left, or have had to be, we've had to kick out before for discipline issues, which is we'll talk about also in the future. There are definite reasons those things have to be done at times. Orphan work is hard. It's hard. But our missionaries really felt, and our Zambian staff felt the calling to offer a second chance for them. And that's what the Skills Training Center is. So it fulfills a number of needs, but it's for older boys. When they come in, they spend a year of detox and experimenting with different skills. The second year, they begin education and starting to develop their skills training. And through the third year, they will apprentice and fine tune their skills. And then some of them will leave the program, and we have also exiting program there, and use our upward scholarships to help set our kids up for life. Some of them will be able to do that, and there are a few that probably will never be on their own. There are a couple of guys that they have known since they arrived in Zambia, our missionaries, 17 years, that are probably in their 30s. We don't know their age. Most of these kids don't know their age, don't know when their birthday is. And there are a couple that are probably going to be lifelong residents, but they're learning skills. They're learning how to take care of themselves, learning how to contribute to the family, and learning how to farm. And we've seen some incredible healing there. Kids who had so many tremors from the sticka so bad they couldn't feed themselves. They had to wear bibs and could barely get a straw into their mouth. 6 months later, they're running foot races on campus. So God's doing incredible work there. It's just it's I'll tell you what, I'm so amazed at the vision of our missionaries and our Zambian staff there, and we have a large Zambian staff, as you can imagine. But that God has led just to deepen this program year after year, and so we're able to provide a clear path for kids who are willing to do it, to maturity in Christ, to equip them to live in their society, to live and speak the gospel. And so, yeah, the Zambian program is huge, but God continues to do amazing work there, and we have so much more opportunity in the future, especially through the Skills Training Center, to reach even more. And so, yeah, and we've got the Exodus program I mentioned, kids who've graduated from the residence program and are now, learning to live on their own. We're still highly involved with them. And we have kids that are going to trade schools and colleges. And we have kids that have come back that are teaching. We have featured Godfrey before. Godfrey was a street kid. He was actually a drug dealer who they met on the street and through the early stages of the Learning Center and My and Papa ministry. Got to know him. He wanted to get off the streets. They saw something in him and they brought him in. And now Godfrey is in his mid-20s. He's got a degree in education. He's back working for Abba's Heart Zambia, teaching the very boys that he used to live among to try to get them off the street and teach them that there's a better way through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he's also now married with his first child. So those stories right there keep us going and remind us of why we're doing what we do, because there is hope for these kids. And so in Kenya and Zambia, that's how God has given us the opportunity to offer that hope through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so that's just a quick summary of those ministries, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's exciting to see how God's working, and one of the things that we're going to do here on Plead the Cause is we're going to start sharing some of the stories and testimonies. So we'll probably be doing something like along the lines of Tuesday testimonies, where we're going to share stories like Godfrey's and many others from each of our ministries abroad and with the Care Portal here locally. And we're excited to be able to share how God has worked in the lives of these kids, and just stories like Godfrey's where he came back and actually is giving back now, and he's serving those who are in the same position that he was in years ago, and stories like Aubrey, who couldn't even put a sentence together, and now there's a light in his eyes, and he's gardening, and he's doing really well. And it's just exciting to see these stories and how God is moving, and how these kids are being ministered to, and what the fruit of that is. So if you want to find out more, we have a lot of information on both of these ministries on the website. You can check it out at heartofthebride.org, heartofthebride.org. Go down, check out Kenya, check out Zambia. There's also information on how you can partner with each of those ministries. Like we've said before, there are opportunities to pray, to engage in different ways. One of the things is every month on typically the first Monday, sometimes it'll vary based on holidays or whatever, but typically on the first Monday night of every month, we're looking to do a call with some of our staff in the different countries and have them share some of the stories from there. So that's a way to engage with them as well. We have the Commit 3 initiative where you can get in and engage more. So, you can look at ways to pray for different needs of the ministry, to engage with us, and then to give. There are a lot of needs financially that help to make these things happen, to support these ministries, so that you can see the opportunities to partner financially with each of these ministries as well. But then there's also opportunities to go over there. We do short-term mission trips, and we'll even have opportunities for people who are looking maybe to do long-term missions, and how they can join Heart of the Bride. So if you have questions about that, or your church might be interested in sending a team, please let us know. We'd love to talk with you about those opportunities. So yeah, Brian, anything else before we close out today?
No, man, you summed that up well. Join us. There are a lot of ways that you can join us in this ministry and be a part of it. And I'd love to meet you all too. I met Tommy because he heard our missionaries share. Tommy and Helena felt called to be missionaries, and now we're good friends and doing a podcast together. And
That's right.
you just never know how God's going to want you to be involved. But it's a number of levels. No one person can do everything, but everybody can do something. So
Yeah.
if God is calling, if you feel any inkling at this point, contact us. There is something you can do. And you can be a part of what we do. It takes everybody. I mean, it takes the church coming together to meet these kind of needs.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Well, we would encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. That way you'll get notified anytime we come up with a new episode or any opportunities where we go live. That way we can engage with you on a live chat. Also, if you're interested in the podcast format, we have audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform, so you can check us out there. Make sure you check out the website, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate you, man.